Tech Yeah Podcast.
That's pretty cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the internet's #1 podcast for tech news, presented by Bill and Tony.
Yes,
It's Tech Yeah.
it's time.
Buckle up
for Tech Yeah Podcast episode 32.
I feel like the expectation is going to be set way too high right now.
No, we're popping.
So
off.
whatever your expectations are right now, just lower it a little bit. It's been kind of a slow. We've got some interesting topics, but
Yeah.
we'll see where they go. I think they're more newsworthy than potentially interesting topics, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that we're kind of in this weird cycle where politics has taken over. Like, I feel like we're going to be this way until 2020.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, keep in mind, though, that there's only 535 days until the election. So.
Yeah, so I feel like, I feel like super hard politics have taken over and will continue to take over
Yeah.
the news cycle until at least. I think what's going to, well, I don't want to talk about politics, but once Biden gets nominated, people will stop talking about politics.
Yeah, probably.
Because everyone's going to just be like, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm done.
I hate politics.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so we're back. We're live. Episode 32.
Well, we're not technically live, but
We're alive.
this is pre-recorded.
We're alive.
We're alive.
Uh,
This is pre-recorded,
yeah.
so don't like expect us to respond to your comments.
No, just
in real time.
Expect whatever you want.
Yeah,
Just
that's
yell
true.
it out in the car, and we'll respond. Maria, no, you can't say that.
Yeah. Watch your mouth.
Watch it. While we're in the intro, make sure to check out techyeahpodcast.com and techyeah.pizza. I haven't set up the redirect yet for the .pizza domain. So that techyeah.pizza
That should be easy to remember, though.
doesn't actually
everybody.
go anywhere yet.
Yeah.
But techyeahpodcast.com is up. I'm still working on it. It's just a WordPress site right now. But check it out. It's got all of our social links. I'm not going to tell you those anymore, which is a joy. I'm glad to not have to say them all. And it has all the newest episodes and everything.
Yeah, techyeahpodcast.com is a pretty easy thing to remember. And
Yeah. It's not as easy as techyeah.pizza.
No,
But
that's pretty sweet, though.
I'll get that up pretty quick.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right.
That's happening right now.
Good. All right. It's in the oven.
It's in the oven, and yeah, there you can go to get all the latest episodes. You can watch the videos there. You can listen to the podcast there. And I actually want to start publishing some articles there. I got a couple writers lined up to try and get some stuff published. Some
Love it.
tech reviews and some do's and don'ts of
Check
technology
that
and
out.
games. Yeah, This is a
That's next level.
this
We're
is
taking
an
it next
empire
level.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to the Tech Yeah Empire. Yeah.
I realize SEO is probably the most important thing I should be doing.
Search engine optimization for the layperson.
So, I don't know if you guys know about SEO, but if you don't, since I threw it out there, I'll tell you. It just means having links that other people link to. Google sees that and thinks that you are a professional site when people link to your content, and will then rank your content high when people search
Google. We're going to talk about you later, Google.
Oh, you're coming.
You're going to have your time, Google.
Bill, but before we get too deep into this, how was your week? How things going?
Well, it's been fine. I had a couple of flights this weekend, my first back-to-back. So that was cool, like a night flight and then a morning flight. So didn't have much time to decompress after the first one.
I thought back-to-back meant you were surrounded by bad guys.
No, I was actually potentially surrounded by a bad guy. So I don't know how familiar you are with World War II fighter aircraft. Relatively, I mean, you played War Thunder.
P-50 whatever Mustang.
P-51, yeah. So there's a P-40.
Ooh.
And that's the one with like the shark teeth on the front.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen, I mean, it's one of the most recognizable planes other than the Mustang. So there were a handful of World War II planes flying around John Wayne this weekend. It's a company or an organization called the Collins Foundation. And they have 4 World War II planes that they travel the country with and go to air shows, and they give rides and have vets show up, and it's a cool organization. And I've seen them a couple of times, but it's really cool if they're in your town, they will fly around the city. So all weekend there was a B-17 like circling B-24, B-25 just circling
What
my
about a
neighborhood.
lag? Is that what they call that plane?
A
the
lag?
LAGG something.
Oh, I don't know.
It's one of the Russian aircrafts, I think, in War Thunder.
Oh,
I played a lot of War Thunder.
yeah. There was no Russians. It was just it's a P-40, P-51, B-24, B-25, B-17.
What about like a Yak 1B or any of those?
No yaks.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's the plane I like.
yaks are cool.
Yeah, they got the big cannons on them.
Yeah, they're weird, but they're cool.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so we're up doing some air work, just basically flying in literally flying in circles. And the approach controller gets on the radio, and they call out traffic for you on radar. So they're looking at little radar targets, and they'll say to us, Cessna, you have traffic at your 6 o'clock, 4 miles going south to north. That's a P-40. I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? That like first of all, I was like, oh, he's at our 6, we're already dead.
You got run up on.
Yeah, we're already gone. If that thing's at your 6 o'clock and you're in a 172, you're out of the sky.
I didn't know you were dogfighting up there.
Yeah,
That's way more exciting than
just flying around.
your other stories.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. That was not really the highlight of the trip, but I felt like it was like your kind of mile affinity for World War II planes as a result of video games. It was cool to be up in the air with our traffic being an old fighter.
What do you like to fly in War Thunder? What country?
U.S.
U.S. really?
Yeah, U.S. or Britain. I mean, the Russians have some cool planes. The Germans have probably arguably the best planes.
The Germans have the best planes.
But it's kind of weird. It's weird to be on the Axis side.
Really?
I felt like that too with like Battlefield. I always felt like I felt dirty if I was with the like on the Chinese or on the Russians or the Germans, like whatever Battlefield you're on. I don't know if you ever felt that way, like when you're in the pre-select scene or screen.
I mean, I get it. I never really like. I've always, even since my childhood, been good at compartmentalizing, right? So like, I never kind of felt this like, oh, I can't believe I'm the Nazis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I get like why people would. It's just like never like triggered that in me. But I played video games forever. So like disassociation's like I think such a big part of healthily gaming and not like going crazy.
Yeah.
And
I never went crazy, but it was just always
saying,
it was just like selecting a player on Mario Kart. Like I try to go to Yoshi really quick or Toad, and it's like if it's like, oh, someone's got Toad is already, some damn it.
Koopa Troopa's the way to go anyway.
So like whenever the US side was Phil, I'm like, ah, damn it. And then I'd go to the Russian side.
Yeah, US has some fun planes.
Yeah.
But Russia's got some real beasts out there. So
yeah,
the Germans are nuts.
The Germans were, the German engineering was so advanced. They put so much time and energy into the engineering part of it, which, they still build amazing stuff. The Russians were really talented, but they weren't as skilled engineering-wise. So they had really good ideas and really cool designs, but they couldn't execute.
They had a lot of resources, too.
They had a lot of resources, but they weren't executing at the same level that the Germans were in terms of quality.
I'm saying that they were successful in any right because they had the resources.
Yeah, they were just making a bunch of tanks and stuff. It wasn't like their tanks weren't better. And it was kind of like the U.S. was somewhere in between the two, where they were making more than the Germans, but they were making them better than the Russians.
Yeah.
And and they made a couple of really key innovations that the Germans and Russians never did, or did not to the same level. I mean, the P-51, for an example, was like it was just that saved the war on both fronts because it had the range to keep up with the bombers as escorts and the speed and the maneuverability to fight, the bad guys in a dogfight. And you couldn't, the British Spitfires and those planes, like they didn't have that same range and they just weren't as effective.
This is Airplane Talk with
Airplane
Bill and
Talk.
Tony.
Sorry, I apologize, Tony. How was your weekend?
It was pretty good. Talked about airplanes a lot. No,
you got to give me like one episode.
Yeah, I
that
know.
would be
we
kind of
should
fun.
do like an airplane.
That would be kind of fun.
We should do like airplane like from like World War I to today.
Yeah.
like a timeline.
a retrospective.
Yeah, like I give you like 10 minutes a decade. It's like boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
My week was pretty good. I've been playing this game and it makes me feel like a bad person. It's called Mordhau. It's like a new indie kind of game, and it's you ever played Chivalry?
No, but I've heard a lot about it.
So it's like a sword. It's like a melee first-person game,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it's got like every kind of.
Which is a great idea for a game.
It's medieval based, right? So it's every kind of medieval weapon. There are like bow and arrows and crossbows and stuff, but they're slow. Like the weapons
Really
of that
slow to
time,
reload.
right? And you're armored, so
yeah.
it's hard to puncture armor. Like it's good against light armor people, but there's everything from like mauls, like big hammers to spears, to swords and rapiers and great swords and it is like the most gratifying and gleeful game, and it's terrible because what you're doing is disgusting.
Are you? I mean, is it dismemberment?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like your Games of Thrones.
It's like someone will be blocking, and so you just take a swipe, and at the last second, like duck down low and chop their legs off.
And it actually
And it chops their legs
the legs
off.
off.
And they fall down with no legs.
See, that's what I really think is missing from video games,
Yeah.
from a lot of like mature rated video games. And I don't know if it's necessarily a technical issue or more of a like content, like keeping it from being really over the top. But if you throw a grenade in GTA and you got the ragdoll physics of some NPC going
Yeah.
flying, like why not just chop them up into bits?
Yeah.
And same with Battlefield.
Yeah, the same with all those games, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, especially like it's funny because Call of Duty is like the opposite of that. Like, none of your bullets really matter. Like it kind of does it, but at the same time, it's so arcadey that it's like it kind of doesn't seem like you're killing people.
Yeah.
But in this game, man, so I think the funnest weapon is the maul, which is like a hammer, but it's not really big. It's like I'd say it's like 2.5 feet with a big heavy hammer on the
Okay.
end, right? It's almost like a sledgehammer, right? And you just like wind that thing up, like especially like because it's big fights. It's like 64-man maps, right? So people are all mixed up.
Oh, it's multiplayer.
It's multiplayer.
Okay.
So people are all mixed up with each other, right?
Okay.
And you get around them real quick, and you see like some people fighting, and you just wind up like an overhand swing and just come running at them, like so you're
my
like a full
God.
sprint, things
Yeah.
up over your head, and you come down, and you catch somebody on the head, and they just crumple, like they're just like blah, blah, they just like or you hit them from the side, and their body just flips out of the way, their heads come off sometimes.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is.
Oh, I wasn't expecting it to be multiplayer. That's actually kind of cool. So what was the game the precursor that you said?
Chivalry.
And that was not.
That had multiplayer too.
Oh, did it have
It
multiplayer?
did have some, yeah. It had a
Okay.
little both. This game's kind of in like a pre-release. It's $30, but it's and I'm gonna talk about it more on the games podcast if you guys want to hear about that. But it is a joy to play.
So do you think that it is technologically more difficult to dismember a character, or that they make it from a content choice, the decision not to?
I think it's a little of both, right? Like I think when like we've been playing Mortal Kombat, right? And in that game, everyone's getting their heads chopped off, and I think Mortal Kombat kind of bothers me how gory it is, but also it's kind of cartoonish and it's over the
So
top
over the
level
top.
of gore.
Yeah.
Where this game, like dismemberment, right? It's hard to dismember someone with an axe or with a hammer, but if you have like a two-handed, like a great sword or something, and you come in from the right angle, and angles matter, like where you make contact makes contact.
It's not just like chopping off your arm. Like if you hit in this region, an
No.
arm comes off.
No, but if you come up high on somebody and you catch them, like heads will come off. If you duck down low and get under their shield, like you will catch their leg, and their leg will come off.
Awesome. I got to look up videos for this.
Yeah.
Does it seem to be dynamic where the dismemberment happens?
Oh yeah.
It is.
It
okay.
does feel dynamic.
So
yeah.
you can like chop off from the ankle if you're aiming there,
Seems
or
like
from
it,
like
yeah.
the thigh.
Yeah, it
That's
seems
pretty
like
cool.
it, yeah. It's a good game. It's fun. It's gross and makes you feel like a bad person when you finally like get out of it and look at what you've been doing. Like it's funny. On Saturday or Sunday, I was playing a lot, and I texted my friend the day before. I'm like, hey, if you want to go see Pikachu tomorrow, like let me know. And she ended up texting me in the afternoon, and I just like realized like I've been playing this all morning. Like I stepped away from it and was like, man, I've just been like running around chopping off heads for like hours. Like, what's wrong with me?
Sounds so satisfying.
And just smiling, right? Like just being so like giddy about it. It's really rough.
That's pretty funny.
It is.
That's really funny. I've always thought of that. It's kind of bothered me in some games where there is a lot of gore and violence, and they remove that aspect of it. It just seems like it to me, from a technical standpoint, it seems so doable. Like, why would they not do that?
Yeah.
Like Battlefield, why would you not have that as just like a, maybe not all the time, as a gratuitous, part of the game, but just add. I mean, if there's a bomb and someone,
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of like not wanting to. It's funny because, it's like this thing where I think they want to kind of deny that. I think it's a human. And I think it's messed up because, like, I don't have any, like, real desire to enact violence. Like, if I chop, I couldn't chop someone's leg off if you paid me money. Like, not, like, I would be so just disgusted by the idea. Like, if you told me to, like, cut into someone's leg with a scalpel, I would just be like, no, like, no way. Like, I will not do that. But regardless, on a base level, I think that there is this, like, inherent human, or at least male, like desire to destroy. You know what I mean? Like I put on death metal when I play this game, and it's just like it triggers this emotional response that is like so giddy, and I think that like embracing that is not considered PC right now, right? Like, and I don't think it's like that. On a like,
it's a very toxic masculinity.
I mean,
Tony.
it is kind,
Please.
I think it's in a way that seems not worth the squeeze, right? Like you're not really gaining that much by including that kind of thing, right? Like if you're Battlefield, right?
If you're Battlefield, I will buy the argument all day long that Battlefield is going to potentially make light of something that is currently happening.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't getting their legs chopped off by broadswords right now anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just something that doesn't happen. But people, soldiers are getting shot at and blown up and body parts missing. And I can see there being an argument for, look, it's bad enough that we're depicting these battles and violence so realistically.
Violence, yeah.
Yeah, and now we're kind of adding a like torture porn type of added bonus to that,
and not even like just a torture porn, like a very emotionally rewarding amount of torture. Like, I think if people didn't like it when it happened, it would be easier to include it, right? If it was like like this is rough,
right?
I think then including it would be like, okay. But when you include it and people are just like giddily blowing everyone's legs off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's like, I don't know if this is the response we want from, you know what I mean, from people playing this game, right?
Yeah.
And I think it would show in reviews too. I think when you do that, you have this this kind of fear that like reviews will come out and the review will say like that this is kind of a torture porn or glorifying this kind of torturous nature of war, and that's not cool.
I could see it from from those types of games, like multiplayer. I kind of see, because there's a competitive nature and there's another person on the other end of that character. I can see it being, that mentality of like, we don't want to glorify these actions as they're put onto other humans.
Yeah.
But from a single player standpoint, if you've got like a Battlefield, World War One, Battlefield 1 or a Call of Duty, we're going back to World War II, and you're using that as a reminder, like a historical reminder, like, dude, World War I was brutal.
Yeah.
Like, there are people that came maimed out of that and stuff, and like, we need to remember, like, we have the technology to remind us of the horrors of war, and not make it like a, see how many legs you can blow off of this round.
Yeah, I think Wolfenstein does a good job of kind of having a fun game that's based in a historical time period. Like, it's an alternate history, but a historical enemy that is extremely like gory. You know?
Yeah, and it, like zombie Nazis, right, or something like that. Or
No, like even just regular, like
just regular
the
Nazis.
Wolfen. Yeah, it's regular Nazis, but it's like head crushing and like
Yeah.
you know, like it's rough at times.
Yeah.
That game.
Well, I don't think anyone will complain about dismembering Nazis.
That's what's so funny, right?
Yeah, like you could just, we'll chop off body parts all day long if they're Nazis.
Yeah.
Which is the funny kind of like hypocritical part of that. But
Yeah.
there's a definitely cathartic.
Everyone has
point to that.
global beliefs in morality until it comes to Nazis.
Yeah, and
you
it's
know?
like, oh yeah, you can
Yeah,
you
you
can
can do
chop
that,
them
yeah,
up into
whatever,
little
yeah.
bits. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I would never
Put it in
punch
the
someone,
arcade.
but-
We don't care. Set this up in round table.
It's so
let
bad.
kids go nuts.
Yeah, it's so bad. But so I did not intend to go on such a tangent on
It's
that
interesting.
video.
I just thought that's interesting because I've had that thought that is a seemingly missing part of video games that I don't know. It's cool that there's at least an option for that if
Yeah.
you kind of feel like you need to do that.
And it's an interesting tell just on human psychology and kind of the psychology behind selling
Mhm.
games as a product, and like what you want your game to be about, what you want the fun or the celebration to be
Yeah.
in your game, right?
Yeah. Do you want the high score? Do you want the most kills, or do you want to see body parts go flying all over the screen?
Yeah.
Those are distinct people. I feel
Yeah, I think so too. Or I think there's crossover.
there
right?
can be crossover for sure, but I think that most people are going to be in one.
I think
camp
the
or
pleasure
other.
centers are different for
Yeah.
those three things, right? And
Yeah.
I think some people hit all three of them. Some people hit one. Some people hit two.
Yeah.
Hit two.
Yeah, and I mean really the person that's playing and trying to get the high score regardless, and they may or may not like the disembodiment, and then there's the people that I don't care what happens. I don't care if our team loses.
Yeah,
I just
I'll
want to
chop
chop off
heads
so many heads.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I'm here to do is just chop heads off.
So also I watched the Detective Pikachu movie yesterday.
And what is
Sunday.
the official Tech Yeah review of Detective Pikachu?
So the movie had a story. It was not necessarily compelling. I felt like all of the characters were written as like children's movie characters, except for Pikachu. It's almost like Ryan Reynolds wrote his own lines, right? Like there's a kind of a boy meets girl kind of story in there, and it's very like coy and like kids movie in their interactions. But the whole time's like Detective Pikachu's like, yeah, get at her, kid. And you're like, what, Detective Pikachu? Like he seems like the only adult in the world, and he's this cute little Pikachu,
Yeah.
which I thought was a bit misplaced in some scenes.
Well, wasn't he like that in the cartoon
No,
movie?
Pikachu doesn't talk.
I know, but the Detective Pikachu
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
comic or whatever the hell it was, I think
I never watched or played. It was a game actually.
It was a game.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
never
yeah.
played it.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm sure that's some of it, but not even like gruffness, more like awareness. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like where I felt like Detective Pikachu seemed like the only person aware of like the real world. You know what I mean? Where everyone else was very much in like Pokemon world.
Well, that's also Ryan Reynolds' shtick for the
Yeah.
last however many years. I mean, that is Deadpool.
Yeah, but at least in Deadpool, it seemed like there was active participants in it. Where this seemed like everyone else was just like, I gotta follow the script, I gotta do my job, and Ryan
Yeah.
Reynolds is just hamming it up the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a fun movie. I feel like I've been shit talking it for the past couple minutes, but it's a fun movie. If you like Pokemon, you should definitely check it out. I would say go with some friends, laugh at the serious stuff, and don't laugh at the funny stuff. Even some of the funny stuff is pretty funny, but it's just like it's a kids movie. So some of the places where it tries to have weight or where it tries to set up kind of plot devices are so like clumsy. You're just like what?
Yeah.
But that's kind of fun if you're with the right group and you're kind of there to have a good time. So my official go see it score is a 7.5. My quality movie score is a 6 out of 10.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's a fair, honest review.
Thanks.
Tony's take.
I pride myself on my honesty. All
Well,
right.
it's your hallmark.
Yeah, my hallmark is that I am truthful, I guess. I guess that's my new hallmark. New hallmark identified. Okay, so we're going to get into the news. We only got a couple stories today. So,
We're not going to make you work too hard this week.
yeah, this is a pretty easy one. We talked about Pikachu in video games for half the show. So hopefully that means these couple stories will
We'll
hold
wait
up.
it. We'll wait it up a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I know the last story will invoke some violence between us. So Google announced at their I/O event. It's their I/O, right? Was the last one. They dropped the Google Pixel 3a and the Pixel 3a XL. Have you heard of these phones?
These are cell phones for those of you unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about them.
So the 3A and the 3A XL basically have all the features of the modern Pixel 3 camera, which is widely considered the best camera in cell phones right now. With a
Hardware and software wise.
yeah, but their processor, their SoC is actually a little older. It's a Snapdragon 670, which is a couple generations old. But by doing so, they've gotten the prices down to $399 for a 3A and $479 for 3A XL.
It's not bad.
Yep. So it's a 5.6 inch screen, OLED,
Mm-hmm.
or a 6-inch OLED.
That's not bad. I think these phones are going to start. Well, I mean they are because the story exists, and the Apple XR.
Mm-hmm.
What's the Samsung 10?
I don't even know what Samsung calls their cheap phones, but those things are always popping up. Like,
yeah, but I think there's like this race for supremacy in the flagship phone space, and that's where all of the attention is from everybody. And they're well over $1,000 for these phones now.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you're constantly gaming on them or creating like legitimate content, whether it's editing videos or, podcasts or doing anything that's processor intensive, they're so overkill for what most people use them for.
I really don't understand like the need for these flagship phones. Like I have a Huawei Mate 9, right? So this is what I'm using right now. And this phone came out, it was a flagship phone in 2014, right? Like it's old. And, I look at this Pixel 3a and I'm like, everyone's like, oh, well, the processor's so slow. I'm like, it's an upgrade from my phone. You know what I mean?
And I'm surviving.
And an amazing camera, and it's $400. Like,
yeah.
part of me's like, hey, maybe I should upgrade. My glass is all scratched. This phone's old, right? And I'm like, hey, that seems like a really reasonable upgrade path for me, and I can buy it outright, unlocked, and not have to, lock into some $20 a month overpay system to get it, which is what everyone seems to do on these flagship phones, right? Which I don't understand. Is like, they're like, oh, you can get the Galaxy 10 for $39 a month. I'm like, you're gonna pay $40 a month for 2 years? It's like $950. You know what I mean? Like before working in all the other fees. Like that's so much money. Like, and everyone acts like they're not. It's $30 a month. And it's just like, don't you understand what installments are like? What it means?
Well, I mean, I bought my S9 through Samsung Direct, and I got 0% financing for it. And that model, I really don't mind that from especially coming from a manufacturer, because it's an unlocked phone. It's not carrier specific, so I am, and it may be misplaced, but I'm a little bit more trusting of that. Because all Samsung cares about is selling me the hardware.
Yeah, I think that's more reasonable.
So, to get 0% financing for a couple years, and it's that same $28 a month or whatever, that didn't seem like too bad of a deal to me to get a phone that's going to last me 3 years, if we're being honest, at most. And hopefully I can stretch it a little bit longer. This seems to be hanging in there a little bit more than some of my other phones have in the past. But that's just kind of the way people tend to think of things now, where look at all the car commercials that you see now. When was the last time you saw a car commercial that had the actual price of the car listed? It's all lease numbers or in-house financing, unapproved credit. Only get this new Kia for $199, a month. People are just so into their monthly finances as a way to budget for things that if they can afford it per month, that's all they really care about. And it even goes into the subscription models for stuff. You know, it's Netflix is $10 a month. That if someone said to you in January, okay, you get Netflix for the year, but it's $120, people probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But it's so everyone's so month to month focused now that $30-$40 for the new phone, the hottest, latest new thing, people are going to do that for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it is like they've definitely found a loophole where people just are willing to jump into installments if they can afford it, right?
Yeah, why not?
Same thing. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, like car salesmen figured this out first, right? With that Foursquare thing, that was always the big like scandal of car sales a while ago, right? Where it's like, here's your down, here's your installment, who cares what it costs, right?
Right.
And that's kind of the mentality that's permeated kind of all of retailing right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, just like no one owns anything anymore.
yeah,
It's just borrowed or rented, or the bank owns it or whatever, which is fine. I mean, it's cool, but I think more people are going to start to like, oh, dude, I don't like. Why do I need? Because it's getting so outrageous. Where even if you look at the $45 a month, I can spend $45 a month, but I see in small print that that's a $1,300 phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh my God, that's a $1,300 telephone.
Yeah.
I start to feel uneasy about that. And then start looking at, well, this phone it's faster than the one I have now. I mean, hell, I'd get my phone now again if it was just like the battery was new and the screen was fine.
New,
all that kind of stuff. Like for like half the price, I'd get a 2-year-old flagship phone. So I think that more of those phones will start to pop up,
mm-hmm.
and more of them will start to become successful and start to, the prices will start to come down for sure.
I agree. All right. Bill, you got a real heater on your hands.
I've got a couple. So this first one is really not a huge. I mean, it's a big story, but it's not. It's kind of just a story. It's just a news story. So this is from the Washington Post. Supreme Court rules against Apple allowing lawsuit targeting App Store to proceed. So Apple suffered. This is from Tony Rahm and Robert Barnes of the WAPO. Apple suffered a significant defeat at the Supreme Court on Monday. So this is hot off the press as we're delivering it to you, and it's a day old if you're listening to this on Tuesday. When the justices ruled that consumers could forge ahead with a lawsuit against the tech giant over the way it manages its app store. The 5-4 decision allows device owners to proceed with a case that alleges Apple has acted as a monopoly by requiring iPhone and iPad users to download apps only from its portal while taking a cut of some sales made through the store. The ruling could have serious repercussions for one of Apple's most lucrative lines of business, while opening the door for similar legal actions targeting other tech giants in Silicon Valley, Google, and Facebook. So that's basically the story. It's the Supreme Court has allowed a class action lawsuit to proceed regarding that. Doesn't necessarily say that Apple loses that, but it's just one. It's the first loss of probably many to come.
And finding that even just kind of agreeing that this ideology is worth discussing at the Supreme Court level, you know what I mean? Really does open it up to future litigation. Even if this specific case doesn't go through, it shows a future where these app stores cannot kind of be this ubiquitous kind of sales channel for phone software, right? And I get it. I think it does suck that. I mean, at least Android phones natively allowed sideloading, right? Which isn't always great, but it works. Like at least there's a methodology. If you're willing to Google around a bit, you can find a way. Apple will not let you sideload unless you jailbreak your phone, which I don't even know if that's still a thing. I remember it used to be like a big thing.
Jailbreaking,
yeah. I don't know if that's still a thing.
I think it is still a thing, yeah.
So you really have to void your warranty and kind of break your software agreement if you're going to try and sideload on an iPhone, and that does seem crummy and illegal. Like it's for lack of a better term.
It's a weird the conversation, and I want to keep this part of the story specific to the App Store as regarding Apple. Their ecosystem, and I know that's been like a meme, the Apple ecosystem, but their App Store is notoriously difficult to get into.
Yeah.
And they've cornered so much of the market in the past, where like you have Android, which is servicing many different devices, and you have Apple servicing only Apple devices, and you've got Apple that at some point in the not too distant past was a significant chunk of mobile users that had an Apple phone, and it was the iPhone. Back when there weren't multiple variants of it even. So you had the iPhone and the iPad, and all of the apps were developed specifically for those devices, which made the experience on a lot of apps much better on the Apple products because the developers were developing for one piece of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the same app or a different app on Android could have a wide varying quality level for these apps because you've got many different phones.
Different display sizes, different memory configurations.
Yeah,
different
memory and processors and screen resolutions and all kinds of stuff that are just mind-boggling to try to develop around. So you had a lot of developers that, because of that, would only develop apps for Apple, which is a very smart thing to do. One of the apps that I use the most is currently developed only for Apple products, and it's a pain in the butt.
I think their share right now is, and as of April, the last I heard, it's 75% Android, 20% Apple, 5% other.
And it's dropping. It used to be more Apple.
It used to be almost a 50-50.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Android adoption comes from, new markets, as they would call them, third world countries.
Yeah,
as they
right.
develop,
India
right?
and China and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. So I think it'll start swinging back, but the benefit of the App Store being being locked down and going through a longer process to get the app approved. Like when you submit an app to the Apple iStore, or iStore? No, App Store.
App Store.
Yeah. And they have to go through, they have to verify it and validate it
Mm-hmm.
before you can get approved to be sold on there. So there was always this weird release schedule between the two devices. Even
getting this show on the App Store, like I had to pay a third party to do it, right? Like personally trying to get something published as an individual to the App Store. There's a better process now. But by going through a third party, it's like having someone facilitate that for you is the best way to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
and the crappy part for that is that it stifles a lot of the smaller developers and creators, but there's also a much higher quality. It's curated. Those apps are curated.
some of them. I mean, I don't think it's as good as it used to be.
No, it's definitely not as good as it used to be, but that was like kind of the drum that they were beating was that, like we check all these apps. This stuff all works and is validated. Google is just the Wild West of, it might be a virus,
Yeah,
that kind of
Wild West, that's for sure.
like that kind of thing. So I liked what the product they were trying to make, but what I think they were, what is going to be determined now in this lawsuit is, were they doing this to an unfair level in creating a monopoly for what apps you want to put on your phone?
Yeah, I think that's the problem, is that they purposely created a system where nothing else can be loaded on that phone. And if you own that phone, which I think recent decisions have shown, that you do have some ownership over that device, that they can't just say like, yeah, sure, yeah, it's your phone, but if you want to load anything, you have to pay us as well for that.
Right.
You can't block the usage.
Yeah. So if you pay $5 for an app, it's not going, all that money obviously is not going to the developer. Now that may seem like when you hear that, it may be like, yeah, no kidding, but it's not that clear from the majority of people that are buying apps.
Well, and clarity or not, even if it is clear that you're paying Apple for all those, clarity aside, is it fair to the developer and the user that that the only way to load the software is through paying this fee? Like, I think that is the epitome of what monopolizing is, right? It's like, we've closed this ecosystem. We've closed your ability to work outside of this ecosystem. So if you want to get something from point A to point B, you will pay the Apple toll, and there is no other way to do it, And I think that's the issue at hand.
And it's really it's to the detriment of the developer more so than the consumer at face value, because you're not the ones paying Apple.
The price is the same to the consumer.
The price is the same, and like the developer could say, well, okay, we have to cut Apple in, so we're going to raise the app price 20%. Like, for sure that does happen as a result of these added fees to it, for the developer to recoup some of that cost, but it's coming out of their pocket, not yours. It's not like the ATM fee where you take out $5 and you actually get charged $5.25.
Yeah, or $2 on top.
Yeah, it's not that. It's it's a tax underneath what you're paying. That's basically the developer is paying to have their product on that service.
Yeah, because software is basically always going to cost the most you'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. So like they can't really change the price based on that cut they pay Apple. They're not going to lower the price because they're getting 100% down to the 70%. If you're willing to pay $5 for that, they will charge you $5.
Right.
For that.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. And I'd always say, like, if you're like if you're paying $5 for an app to a developer, you want that developer to make as much money as possible for that product, so they can continue to develop
and
things.
Make it better. Yeah.
And support, one, the app that you just bought, and then two, future apps. So that's one view of a monopoly in our little tech sphere that we've got going on now. The other one, which came up last week with just super interesting conversations and interviews. I don't know if you followed much of that, but this is from I am going to plug this website because it's phenomenal. It's fool.com. And the organization is called the Motley Fool, and they I don't know if you've heard of them, Tony. It's a financial, I don't know what you'd even call it, advice news source. So they do articles and give suggestions for financial investments and stuff. But so this is Leo Sun from the Motley Fool. Is Facebook a monopoly? Facebook is the dominant social network, but it doesn't dominate internet advertising. But it doesn't dominate internet advertising. So Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg recently faced a congressional hearing sparked by the revelation that data from 87 million Facebook users was improperly accessed by a data firm, Cambridge Analytica. We've gone over this many times. The hearing was filled with awkward questions and that revealed that lawmakers didn't fully grasp Facebook's business model or its privacy practices. So Facebook is an advertising company.
Yeah.
They sell advertisement. That's their business model. They're not a social media company. They're an advertising data firm. So in the midst of this, Senator Lindsey Graham asked Zuckerberg a question investors should have paid special attention to. Who's your biggest competitor? Zuckerberg seemed to struggle with his answer, saying that average American uses 8 different apps per day to connect to their friends. Zuckerberg didn't name those apps, but his count likely included at least 4 that are owned by Facebook.
Yeah.
The main Facebook app, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Messenger, Facebook, and WhatsApp are the top 3 social apps in the United States on iOS, according to App Annie. Instagram ranks in the photo and video category ahead of YouTube and Snapchat, which is not surprising and surprising at the same time. Because, YouTube's freaking huge.
Facebook videos are huge.
Huge. Yeah. So Graham then asked if Facebook held a monopoly on social networking market, to which Zuckerberg replied, "It certainly doesn't feel like that to me." Well, isn't that special, Zuckerberg, you freaking demon? However, it isn't that simple. Let's examine 3 reasons why Facebook should be considered a monopoly and 3 reasons it shouldn't be. So We won't go into like super deep into this because this is a very long, interesting article. And if you want to read more about it, again, it's the fool.com, the Motley Fool.
What are these headline reasons? Let's hear 'em.
Okay, so the headlining reasons are, I'll briefly go through this. So Facebook could be considered a monopoly, that it has too much power for three simple reasons. Its dominant user base, its pricing power, and its lack of direct competition. So it's the largest social media network with 2.1 billion monthly active users. Good Lord. YouTube is considered the second largest with 1.5 billion. So it's got like almost 750 million more active users than YouTube. But it focuses on video rather than directly on social connectivity. Facebook's WhatsApp and Messenger apps rank third and fourth respectively in terms of users. So WhatsApp has 1.5 billion users, and Messenger is at 1.3 billion. The next best is WeChat, which is primarily a Chinese
Yeah, I use it for
chat.
to talk to my Chinese.
Do you? Okay. They've got 989 million. So it's just, I mean, obviously in the ballpark, but it's not over a billion. So Facebook generates most of its revenue by selling targeted ads, and it throttles the number of available ad slots to boost ad prices. So the user base is the primary reason why they're saying that this is a monopoly and that there is no other competition. So that's interesting. Zuckerberg told Graham that Facebook's business overlaps with businesses of Google, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft in, quote, different ways. That is true, but those companies, they're not really direct competitors as...
Yeah, I mean, that's my biggest takeaway is that these companies, there is competition in this space, but all of these competitors do something different. Like,
Right.
That's the whole point, right, is to create like a social channel that doesn't interact the same way as another one, so it can be used in conjunction with that social channel, right?
Yeah. So the reasons that Facebook isn't a monopoly, yet Facebook wouldn't be deemed as a monopoly if we consider these three other factors: its market share, the effectiveness of its ads, and the shifting demographic. So all three of those are good points. Facebook's is a major player in internet advertising, but still no match for who, Tony? Google. Facebook's ad revenue rose 49% to $39.9 billion in 2017, while Google's ad revenues grew 20% to $95.4 billion. Good Lord, over double Facebook's. You could claim that Google and Facebook hold a duopoly in internet ads, but you couldn't claim that the smaller player holds a monopoly. Technically true, but I have some issues with that line of reasoning. Facebook also isn't the best when it comes to ad effectiveness, undercutting a case for a monopoly designation. A recent Cohen and Company survey of senior ad buyers found that 48% of respondents stated that Google's ads had a higher ROI, while Facebook ranked second at 30%. So a significant gap there. Lastly, in the case against a monopoly label, Facebook doesn't have an iron grip on all its users. The number of 12 to 17-year-old Facebook users in the U.S. fell 10% in 2016, and another 11%, in 2017, according to eMarketer. Facebook is retaining some of those users through Instagram, but lots of them are heading over to Snapchat, which Zuckerberg has named as a growing competitor. So the Motley Fool kind of recaps some of those points, which I won't do. We'll use our own brains for recapping those pieces of information.
Well, I got a recap for you.
Hit me with it.
Well,
hit me right in the Googles with
right
it.
in the Googles with it. I mean, honestly, like, I don't think Facebook's a monopoly. Like, I don't think and I think as they point out, like, by the definitions of a monopoly, they're clearly not it, right, as far as what that specifically is. I think the problem, really, and I think the thing that we don't really have grips on yet is, like, what social media is and how we catalog those things, because it's a different word. I think the things going on in social media cannot be described through traditional capitalist market terms, right? And by kind of hoisting those things on, it's so easy to dismiss criticism as like, that's not what we're talking like. I think a big conversation that happening right now is like with Twitter and Facebook and like free speech, right? The First Amendment, which is kind of what triggered in me. Like when I hear this stuff, it's not like the financial monopoly aspect, whatever. Like if you want to blame it, tackle anybody, it's Google, clearly, right? Like they're just a behemoth compared to what Facebook does. But, I think the real conversation is, like when we've allowed Facebook and Twitter and Google to become the public location for discourse and conversation. They are the water cooler, they are the newspaper, they are the coffee shop. You know what I mean? And by doing that, they've monopolized like kind of the zeitgeist, right? And I think that's much more powerful, much more profitable, and much more dangerous than any kind of financial monopoly.
Much more evil.
Much more evil than any kind of financial monopoly, right? And so that's where I think we get into this weird space where it's like, people want to bring up the First Amendment when Alex Jones gets banned. Alex Jones is an asshole. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an Alex Jones fan. But I also think it's very scary to see people removed from these platforms that have, through their sheer size and buying power, bought out any competitors, bought out any like relevant ability of searchability in the space, and created a cultural marketplace or a public square that is the only one available and designed by them, And I think that's where the danger lies. I think you calling a monopoly like they kind of tried to grill Zuckerberg on, it's so easy for him to be like, well, we're not a monopoly. Look at the numbers, right? And what I think what they are is something that's way more evil.
Way more evil. I agree. I 100% agree. That's perfectly said. Their potential, and I say potential, because they are doing it, so it's not really potential. Because I believe they are filtering. They're driving a lot of the narrative of things.
Always.
Having them in control of any dissemination of information, having one entity, in control of the dissemination of information is, terrible for educating the public. But they're not. It's not like back in the day with railroads or AT&T was, like the big AT&T telco monopoly,
or even Microsoft before it got broken up for software.
Yeah, Microsoft. So like those companies, their monopolies impacted the consumer and impacted the consumer with like the big problem with monopoly is price fixing and like competitive lopsidedness and stuff.
And access to products and services.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's the key thing with that is access to products and services that you need. And do people need computers and operating systems? No, but there's a reasonable expectation that you should be able to have access to that. Like it's
I would say currently you kind of do.
Yeah,
at some base level.
That's the only real argument I can think of is when something comes into the like, well, you have to be able to use a search engine in today's age to function. Like you can't be realistically or reasonably assumed to go throughout your day without interacting with Google. That's where it starts becoming a problem, but it's not costing you any money. So how are you monopolizing something just because you're the more popular option?
Yeah.
And social media falls into that category to me because no one's forcing you to check your Facebook account or to look up, friends from high school. No one's forcing you to do that. So to say that it's monopoly, because we know how quickly things can change in this environment. You can have something replace Facebook tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And it'd be like saying Fortnite has a monopoly. We need to break up Fortnite. I was like, they're just a better product and more people are using it.
I will say I think Facebook and Google properties in general have so much money that they do use that to combat competition, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
The reason no one's going to challenge Facebook is because Facebook will buy them before they can, or Google will buy them to challenge Facebook, right? Like one of these large, one of those two basically large ad sales, kind of one of these platforms will deplatform whoever tries to challenge them. Because they just have so much buying power.
But it's not anti-consumerism.
No, and that's what I mean. It's not.
Yeah,
I'm saying
that's
it's
where
not,
it's really weird.
I agree. It's not a monopoly, right? And that's why I was saying like that's such a bad term for it.
Yeah, I get like squashing competition is bad for the consumer, but it's harder to make that argument than it is with the price fixing that comes with a true monopoly.
And it's not. And just because competition is willing to be bought out does not mean that there's no that people are unable to compete, right? Like that's the thing. Like you can make a competitor to Facebook, right?
Yeah,
and you can work it like you don't
really hard, but yeah you could.
Like they're not going to hostily take over your company. It's not public, right?
Right.
Like it's a private company. You can operate it. You can challenge it. You can try to create a better product, and you very well could succeed. And if you are willing to not take the hundreds of millions or maybe billions of dollars they offer you, you might be able to dethrone them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Facebook dethroned MySpace.
Yeah, Facebook dethroned MySpace, and MySpace dethroned Friendster. But I'm still holding on for a Friendster comeback.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
I
keep updating my Friendster just in case, just so I can be, right on the top.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes is like one huge Twitter petition. Like who's the biggest social media personality? Like one of the Kardashians or
Kim
something.
Kardashian, probably.
Like if the Kardashian girls just all said, you know what, fuck Facebook, we're all going back to MySpace. Facebook would be screwed.
I think it would have to be a new thing, because I do think that a lot of people like Facebook has become like such a. It's not even about like it being good or popular. It's like we already convinced all of our parents to sign up for it. So it's like, it's what they're all on. You know what I mean? It's how like my dad knows I'm alive is like by Facebook posts or Facebook chatting. It's hard to make a change. Like it's one of those things that are so ingrained now that a change would take time. But you are correct. If the right personalities or a group of personalities decided this is the new thing, this is better, this is what we're going to kind of flock to, it would definitely take off. But
I think it has to be a movement at this point.
Yeah.
Not Google, because I think Google has some consumer benefits to it that are going to be really, really hard. It's not like Bing. If everyone was like, okay, everyone, we're going to be Binging everything from now on. It's like Bing isn't going to all of a sudden be the replacement for Google, because Google's algorithms are really what helped create it. Facebook was really like a vacuum that helped create it. Like there wasn't anything that Facebook was doing particularly different from MySpace, really, or any other competitor that created. It was just like, well, everyone else is here, so I have to be here. It's just like, I don't even know how to like what analogy you could place on that. It's just like it's where everyone is, so it grew as a result of the fact that it was popular. And it's kind of chicken and egg thing a little bit, but it just whatever environment caused all the kids to go onto that, and that built on it. Google is not going to have that same shift, but there needs to be a movement to say, okay, we're now all going to log into this platform to share our stupid one-liners and pictures of our dogs and food.
Google's so smart. They just found such a powerful way to leverage big data while also providing a lot of consumer benefit to participating in that big data experiment, right?
Yeah, I mean Google Maps and YouTube
even when Gmail first came out,
Gmail.
Like when Gmail first came out, like I got like an early Gmail. It's just like first initial last name at Gmail. I get like random Gmails for everybody because I
Yeah.
always typo it, but I got an early Gmail, and people were like begging for Gmail beta invites, right? Like when it first came out,
Yeah.
and you're like, why? But you remember at that time, like Hotmail was the competitor,
Yeah.
and Hotmail was so bad.
Yeah. It
Right?
was not
Like-
good. Yeah.
Like Gmail was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
As far as like what you got, that it was like, yeah, I don't care if you like skim my emails, you know what I mean, and like take out keywords.
Well,
like,
you don't even the average person doesn't know that's happening, because even just hearing you say that now, like I had Hotmail for a long time, and when you say like Gmail was so much better than Hotmail, just if I take away my knowledge of the technology and just think, yeah, it really was. And from, like at the time, I didn't know why, but I got so much crap on Hotmail.
Yeah.
Like their filtering was terrible.
Their interface was bad. Their filtering was
Yeah,
bad.
interface was not good. So then Gmail comes along, and now all of a sudden I have my inbox is just emails that I want to read.
You can auto push them to your calendar.
Yeah, and it just was like,
Yeah.
this is kind of weird. Like, this just looks so much cleaner, and you don't really know why, but this is more clean and relevant to me. You log into Hotmail because you've got some, account password reset, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
crap, I got to log into Hotmail, which I still have to do that every once in a while. And I'm like, oh, my God. And it's just like Viagra and porn and, like, prints of wherever it wants
I have a
your
Yahoo
social
mail that is like the
Oh,
filthiest
God.
place. Like you cannot go in there.
Yeah, it's
You know?
just you're just like, what is this? How is this not like murdered me?
Yeah, it's disgusting. But they really like gave you so much for your information that it didn't feel as bad when they kind of
And they don't. And this is what happened last week. This is a lot of the information that came out last week. Is they're asked this? I'm going to blank on the guy's name, but it was Zuckerberg. It was the co-founder of Facebook. And they're talking about just these big data companies where they have just pages and pages of user agreement stuff. And this interviewer, I think it was 60 Minutes or something. It was like some big network that was interviewing this guy. They said, okay, if you pared down that big user agreement to a couple sentences, what would it say? And the guy goes, it would say, we're using all of your data.
yeah.
And and people would not click yes to that. But when you sign up for Gmail and it's all of the inbox placement, and you won't get junk mail and promotional emails in a separate thing, like how do you think they're doing that?
Yeah, Gmail's done a good job too of, until lately. I feel like lately it's gotten worse, but not being so overt in their targeted marketing, right? Like it was sort of just targeted enough that you didn't feel so violated, where Facebook seems to relish in making you feel violated by how precisely they can target you with marketing. Like here's a shirt with your name on it. You're just like, what? Like what? Like why? Or like here's your dad's favorite this, and you're just like, it's Father's Day, and it's just like, you need to stop. Like
Yeah.
you can't. Like this is too much. Like it's so in your face
Right.
that they're like, hey, we're reading all your shit and selling it. So I hope you like it. But yeah, they're all scumbags.
Yeah, well, and the crazy part is too, like you give Facebook a lot of that information willingly.
Yeah.
Google, you don't.
Yeah.
They just find that out, which you're right, is like way creepier. And Facebook, hey, pick your favorite bands.
Yeah.
What other interests do you have?
Yeah.
You're like, I remember setting that stuff up, going like, oh yeah, I like this car company and I like this band and I go to this
It's
movie.
funny how you thought it was fun. when
Oh
you-
yeah, you're just like, oh, this is a list of movies that I like. You're like, dude, they're just gathering data for you. And I will say it again: if something is free, you are the product.
That's a good note to go out on.
Right.
Yeah. All right. That's it for us today. We love you TYPs out there. Make sure to techyeahpodcast.com or techyeah.pizza after this.
Jesus, tech, yeah, pizza. If you disagree with us in any measurable way or agree with us, please send us an email at techyeah.com, gmail.com.
It's on. Just point them to the website.
Okay,
Because the
fair
email's
enough.
on there.
Yeah, well, I wanted to highlight the fact that our
Yeah, that's true.
gmail.com. But yeah, go to techyeahpodcast.com and send us a note about this topic if you feel like Facebook or Google are monopolies or not, or why, or an example of a company that you think is a monopoly for whatever reason, and,
Or what you thought about the Pikachu movie.
or give us your review of Tony's take.
All right. We love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.